My name is Lindon Crow. I am president of Productive Learning, and I have come to hone my mission, which is to lessen the unnecessary suffering of the world. I believe that that is done when that nagging and pesky voice in your head decides to take a vacation so you can do all those things that you do when you feel confident and courageous and clear-headed with conviction. All those times you entertain that pesky monkey chatter, I consider that unnecessary suffering. And to be honest, I am over that voice being a part of my daily experience and my clients' experience. So I've dedicated my last 18 years to studying where that voice emerges from, when that voice decides to get a megaphone and raise its insidious voice, and also ways to tame that little beast. Oh, and I do that along with our other coaches and facilitators here at Productive Learning, where they started doing that over 30 years ago. So thank you for joining me today, and thank you for those that are listening to the recording. Let's jump in. Tough conversations. Just hearing the phrase probably makes most of you shift uncomfortably in your chairs. At least it does for me when I'm thinking about tough conversations. Here's the truth. Dodging tough talks is not just making things awkward, it is killing your success. Think of it like putting duct tape on a leaky pipe. It will surely alleviate for a while, but eventually that pipe is going to burst and you will have a mess on your hands. So why does having tough conversations and challenging talks matter? When we have them, we bring clarity, we bring accountability, and we progress things forward. On the flip side, when we avoid them, we delay success, we strain our relationships, and we have a whole lot of unnecessary stress. As I was prepping for this masterclass, I thought through an example of a corporate client that we work with, and he has a motto that I very much like. He says, "Big windshield, small review window." What he means by that is that he and his company are constantly driving towards bigger, hairy, audacious goals. So finding passionate and hardworking, dogged people is not his issue, especially when his company was around 35 people when we started with him. What happened was that because of his own issues around avoiding tough conversations, the culture within his organization just swept conversations about accountability and broken agreements under the rug. So if you could perform in his eyes and put dollars on the scoreboard, it did not matter the wake of destruction you left behind you. Show me the dollar in the contracts you close, and we will disregard the bridges and the relationships that you burned along the way. And that worked while he had his hands in everything, which he tried to do. But as we worked with him and his company grew to 55 people, and then 75 people, and then 150 people, he understandably could not keep outperforming the problems he was making because he couldn't come in and save the day. As we worked with him and his team over years, he eventually turned his attention to the quality of the relationships he was failing at and inevitably found himself facing challenging conversations with not just his direct reports and his vendors and some clients. It was with his wife and his kids and his parents that made the big difference. He did 2 years of cleaning up a lot of junk, a lot of transgressions. And because of that, he was able to A, reduce his headcount in his company while maintaining growth. But that wasn't even what he cared about the most. What he cared about the most was that he rekindled his relationship with his wife that was being stressed to the point where they were talking about divorce on a regular basis, and with his kids. So his company culture, yes, improved, but really what mattered to him most was that he actually maintained the relationship with that which was most dear to him. He was one of the people, the early adopters of the hashtag this shit works. This shit works. Okay, so think of tough conversations. This is great. I love this. This was put together by Angie, who's on here. Think of tough conversations like dietary fiber of communication. Absolutely essential if you want things to flow smoothly. Huh? I'm sure plenty of you have your own examples of how when you've avoided the things you know you should do, it creates an immediate sense of relief. But in the long run, it only causes ongoing stress and many times failures to actually achieve the goal. And that could be in intimacy and sex in your relationships. That could be culture and business growth at work. It does not matter. So I want to talk about how we can tackle this unnecessary stress to reduce it and create a new perspective to tackle those challenging conversations. And because of that, I am going to introduce to you the beloved drama triangle. This is Karpman's drama triangle, also known as the victim triangle. This concept was introduced by Dr. Stephen Karpman back in 1968, and he identified that when conflict arises between people, there are three roles that the individual takes on. And from those roles leave success and fulfillment unattainable. So we're going to talk through the drama triangle. Okay? Three positions. The victim. Life happens to them. It is outside of their hands to control. There's the rescuer or the hero. Don't worry, I'll save the day. And then there's the persecutor or villain. It's all your fault. They are blameful. I'm going to go into this a little bit more so you can take home some value today. And because, as many of you know, my daughter just turned 4 years old and I'm constantly reading and listening to or watching some form of Disney tale, we're going to talk through some characters that illustrate these roles. Okay, so the victim, the poor me's of the world. The victim perceives themselves as oppressed, as helpless, as powerless, believing they lack control over their circumstances. They often seek others to solve their problems, which just reinforces a sense of dependency between them and the other. If you know you're in a codependent relationship or you see others in one, you can be damn sure that one of you is playing the victim role. Who better to be the sad, glum, helpless character on the victim triangle than our beloved Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh? He is constant pessimism and belief that nothing ever goes right. And it's illustrated in his mindset. You see it, right? You can remember it. Eeyore says to himself when it starts to rain, "The sky has finally fallen. I always knew it would," right? He always knew it would, meaning he's always thinking from the position that it won't work. Something won't turn out the way he wants. And then he approaches all of his decisions, all of his conversations, all of his relationships in that way. Disney does a great job of dramatizing what many of us feel when we watch or feel like we are victims to the world. It's just all different versions of poor me. Okay. The next position on the drama triangle is the rescuer, or also known as the hero. This is the let me help you, let me do that for you. The rescuer intervenes to assist the victim, often without being asked, and many times they neglect their own needs in the process. This can be looking from the outside. It can many times look like they're being very noble, very valiant, very heroic. But what it subversively does is it disempowers the person they are helping from learning or growing or maturing, and thus making that person dependent on the outside world even further. Typical examples of this are all you high performers out there that take on your direct reports responsibility with the noble belief that, hey, the job got done. So, oh well, I worked through the evening and on the weekends. But what it means is you've stressed yourself out more. You've lost productivity in your team, which means you are paying for help that you are not using. And it stifles growth because you've become, or at least will become, a bottleneck. I have a client that is a general manager of her engineering firm. So she reports directly to the owner. She is wicked smart, incredibly ambitious, and she is a workhorse. She was with the company, I believe she's employee number 3. And as they've grown now to be a firm of about 45 or 48, she is quickly breaking. And the reason is because she has 14 direct reports. And each of those direct reports has 2 or 3 people underneath them. So she essentially has the entire organization talking with her. Why? Because in her mind, her rescuer hero mind, she needs to ensure it is perfect and that the client gets what they want. She needs to keep the agreement with them. It's all very noble, right? It's all good. But what she's come to realize over the 2 years that we've been working together is that that mentality sacrificed her marriage and strained her relationship with her teenage sons. And actually, it sent her to the hospital twice for irregular heart palpitations. She saw that she chose to take on, or maybe better yet, keep the responsibility of her growing company to herself instead of empowering and teaching and guiding and coaching them to be as good, if not better than her. So two years into coaching this gal and doing some trainings with her entire senior leadership team, and their company culture has started to shift where they are now being more productive because it's not just her running the show. She's now got 45 other people trying to grow and build and do more than just the one very bright individual can do. And she's actually getting home for dinner most nights and rarely works on the weekends. So I hope you hear how this is life-changing. If she kept her trajectory, it's all a guess as to when her body would have truly broke. Some people are mentally resilient to suffering, like her. But what that doesn't mean is that her body could handle it. So some of you heroes, some of you rescuers, you take on the world and your body may be fighting it. So who exemplifies a rescuer or hero? How many of you remember Marlin, the fish dad from Finding Nemo? What I find great about this, especially any newer Disney movie, is they many times give you a small backstory as to understand why they are the way they are in the main plot, the main part of the plot. If you remember the opening scene in Finding Nemo, the first one, it's him and his wife and their little fish egg babies. And Marlin is happy-go-lucky, unlike you see for the rest of the movie. He is happy-go-lucky. He's so in love. He's so happy to be a dad. And then I think it's a barracuda. It's a big fish comes in and knocks him out. And then when he comes to, his wife is gone, assumedly dead, and all the eggs are destroyed besides the one little egg, which turns out to be Nemo, right? So Marlin's rescuer, hero, need to take care of everything comes from a deep-seated fear, which all rescuers out there will eventually find if you do a little deeper work on yourself. Marlin's overprotectiveness towards his son, Nemo, leads him to constantly intervene. He's trying to shield Nemo from any potential harm. And all of that angst, all of that worry, all of that control and drive for perfection hinders Nemo's ability to learn and grow independently. And what the rescuer, the hero, can do is it either drives people away This is what happened to Nemo when he got caught by the scuba diver because he said, "Screw you, Dad, I'm going to go do the thing you didn't want me to." He drove Nemo away. You could think of this like the rebellious teenager who just wants to figure it out on my own. Just let me be, right? Because they have that overbearing, yet probably caring parent. This could also be the employee that is amazing that you want on the team, and yet for some reason they feel stifled by their boss and they leave, and you think, why? How? They were doing so well. Because somebody was trying to micromanage. Somebody was trying to hinder them from growing themselves. Um, uh, Another example that came to mind earlier when I was reviewing this is the stereotypical millennial that had loving, caring parents that took care of everything. They rescued them. And thus the kid never figured out how to make an income to pay for their own cell phone bill, to let alone leave the house on their own. The kid becomes dependent on their parent, right? The rescuer, the parent is loving. They have an honorable intent. It's beautiful. But if left unchecked, they either push that person away or the other person comes in and becomes dependent and disempowered and yuck, right? Don't like that. Don't like that. So now, the third one, the persecutor or the villain slash the villain, same thing. This perspective comes across as it's all your fault. They are critical and controlling. This position, they are oppressive, they are blameful of others, and they enforce a strict boundary without offering constructive guidance. So, how many of you remember Jeremy Irons' deep, sophisticated, authoritative voice of Scar from The Lion King, right? Scar is the blameful younger brother to Mufasa, right? Mufasa was James Earl Jones because Scar couldn't be king because Mufasa was king. And then he gets even more blameful of his brother because his brother, Mufasa, has a son, Simba, our main character, which means that Scar gets put further down the hierarchy. So Scar is blaming the world for him not getting what he wants, right? He tries to then, as a villain, as the persecutor, blame and manipulate others to control him. He blames Simba for the death of his father, and Simba runs away and hangs out with Pumbaa and Timon, right? He tries to manipulate the hyenas, and he has a disdain for people in the world. You remember what did he say? He said, "I'm surrounded by idiots," right? He has this disdain for all these others. So we've got to recognize these roles. These are the perspectives that we take on. And when we take these on, I need to get some background, some context first. We're not having these tough conversations ourselves because we have stepped onto the drama triangle and we are seeing the world from these positions, the victim, the villain, or the rescuer. When we see the world from these positions, we then have an internal battle about if we should even have the conversation, and then secondly, how to have the conversation. So if you are seeing that you are avoiding it, you are inherently on the drama triangle, on the victim triangle. Everybody follow that? Make sense? Nods? Fantastic. RC, was that a nod? I don't know. It looks stoic. Oh, thank you. Very good. Okay, just making sure you were watching, paying attention. Good. Now, why? When we take on the positions on that drama triangle, the rescuer, why are they in a conflict? Because the rescuer doesn't need to have the conversation. They're just going to do it themselves. Even though there's a part of them that is thinking, I need to have a conversation. I need to bring accountability to that person. I need to call them out. The rescuer in them is saying, why bother? I'll just do it. The villain doesn't need to have the conversation because all they're going to do is blame the other person and cause the other person to get defensive, and they have a gut feeling that it's going to turn into a fight. How many of you are avoiding a conversation because you think it's just going to turn into a fight? There's probably some part of you that's stepping onto that villain part of the drama triangle. And you know it. That's why the gut is saying, don't do it. It's going to turn into a fight. Your gut's right because it's saying you're in the perspective of the villain. The victim doesn't have to have the conversation because what's the point? It's not going to work out anyway. Oh, well. Oh, it's Eeyore. Oh, well, it's all going to go wrong anyway. Dr. Stephen Karpman believed that understanding our default position on the drama triangle is transformative. Just knowing your position. In personal relationships, this awareness can lead to deeper intimacy and connection with partners because it breaks patterns that hinder open communication and trust. In the workplace, recognizing these dynamics enhances collaboration, it reduces conflict, it creates a more in sync and productive environment. Okay. One other note about the drama triangle is that it is not neutral. No, that would be way too easy. The drama triangle and the positions you take on and others take on have in and of themselves a gravitational pull. These roles are sneaky and they thrive on three things: blame, helplessness, and the illusion of control. The more you engage, the deeper you sink into frustration and resentment and guilt. So, as Karpman said, the first step to getting off and out of the triangle is awareness, identifying that you are on it. Think of it like this. When you are on the triangle in some position, and you've now placed others on the triangle with you, then you are all on a stage performance. It is a play. It is a production happening. The lights are out. It is just three spotlights on you, and there is some exchange, there is some dance, there is some drama unfolding. Awareness is like turning the house lights on in the theater. The entrancement of the performance is done. The costumes, the roles you were playing, they do not make any more sense. It's time to get off the stage and stop acting. Awareness of when you are on the drama triangle is the house lights. You turn them on to get off the stage. Make sense? Thumbs up? Okay, good. All right, now let's make this fun. Most of us have a default role on the triangle, maybe even a backup role we like to tag in when things get heated up. The trick here is, again, to identify it, to own it. I want to give it a name. Why? Because when you make it lighthearted, it's like using a pencil instead of a Sharpie. You're not locked into that role forever because pencils can be erased. Sharpies are permanent. Like what my daughter did on the bathroom wall yesterday. Okay, here, let's get started. First, think about your most emotionally unhinged, tainted, difficult relationship. One where you know that conversations are challenging. This could be at work or at home. You could be emotionally triggered while talking and working with them. This could also be a conversation where you know you're avoiding. Sometimes some people keep it cool while you're in that conversation, but afterwards you ruminate or you dwell or you review the scenario over and over again. Okay, everybody got somebody or some conversation in mind? Yes, fantastic. Okay, in the chat, thank you very much. Fantastic. In the chat, I want you to write what that relationship is. So, meaning, is it your wife? Is it your coworker? Is it a client? Is it your daughter? Is it your husband? Stick it in the chat. Just the relationship, the kind of relationship that it is. Okay? Stick it in there. Now, second part, with that relationship in mind, what sensations do you feel in your body and your emotions when you think about having that conversation? Good, we've got Wife, mother, coworker, business partner. Fantastic. Everybody's got stuff. Okay. Second part. Now with the relationship, what is it that you feel in your body and your emotions when you think about that person and the challenging conversation, either in preparation for that conversation or what you typically feel in that conversation? Emotions and feelings, and then simultaneously, good, Al, trepidation, like it. And then simultaneously, what do you hear in your head, and or maybe you actually say out loud, likely about them and or yourself? It's the perspective or opinion that you take on. What do you think? Frustration, resentment, anxiety, dread, yes, pissed off, right? What's the perspective? What do you think about them? What do you think about you? Why do I even bother? Perfect, yes. Stuff like that. What's the relationship? What's the emotion? What's the perspective you take on? Could be of you, could be of them. Okay, now that you have that, the question is, what role do you shift around to? Excuse me, not role do you shift around to? What role do you take on if you are on the drama triangle, disregarding the type of relationship for the moment, the emotion that you feel and the perspective that you take, which position are you? Rescuer, persecutor, we got victim to persecutor, good, victim, yep. You're going to need to know this, so make sure that you jot it down. Very good. Okay, now, second part. The question is, what role do you many times shift to? Many people teeter back and forth between two. Some people already said that. Al, victim to persecutor, persecutor to victim, Marcella, good. You're going to need to know, when do you shift? Sometimes it's in the middle of a conversation. Sometimes it is the middle of a sentence. Sometimes it sounds like, I'm never going to get these sales by the end of the month. I'm so screwed. They just put these numbers in front of us and then they expect us to do it. They're so dumb, right? You took on from victim to villain in one sentence. Write down which position on the triangle is your secondary. Primary, secondary. Okay? Tend to be persecutor with them. Good. Victim to rescuer. Good. Shift in the middle of the conversation. Partner offers a solution. Good. Okay, great. Now, what do they say? Name it to tame it. This is what we're going to do. What is your primary role and what is a name, character, persona we could call this? For example, I have a business owner that my team works with where he has identified that when he's in reaction and dodging tough conversation, he becomes an angry victim. So he labeled his persona Avi, angry victim Avi. Okay. So whenever he's in that position, he sees it. He says, this is Avi's coming out. And some of his other executives, because they've done group work together, are able to actually call him out and say, I think that's an Avi response. And he's able to actually hear it. It's great to do group training like that. Okay. So that's a person that gets riled up, right? My reactionary state goes more to a flight or a freeze strategy. When I'm in reaction, I make less movements. I stop being confident. I'm less clear with people, and I let others direct me. Everyone sees from the outside that I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm collect. Even though on the inside I'm scared, I'm hoping not to make any wrong moves. And so I turn into a victim, not an angry victim. My victim I call Cool Hand Luke. So if Cool Hand Luke is about, then I'm just going with the flow. It's really easy, it's really nice, it's fine. But on the inside, I'm freaking out. So what do you want to label your drama triangle reactionary persona? What do we got up here? Arnold. I don't know exactly what Arnold, but I like it. I like it. What's the name? This could be a made up name, like I said, Avi, Our Cool Hand Luke, this or like a or it could be a real character like Cool Hand Luke. Could be TV, could be movies. Put it in the chat. Grumpy old man. Very good. Victims, like, right? You could feel sorry for me, Sam. The hero could be Captain Fix It, or the person that goes and fix it. Or the villain. You want to be called Maleficent? Fools, imbeciles. Share your names in the chat if you got something. Mighty Mouse, nice with the song. I like it. I like it. This is good. Now, we're naming it and we're not doing it out of judgment. This is bringing awareness and some humor and lightheartedness to it because we want to keep things open, we want to keep things flexible. We have to realize that we are not that person. We're acting like that person, so we're going to label the actions and the behaviors and the perspectives. You are yourself somebody different. You take on a role like you do when you become a performer on stage. You take on being Mighty Mouse. You take on being Grumpy Old Man. That's not who you are as in and of itself. Okay, so we want to label that thing so we know when we're labeling it, it's just a persona. It's just a coat that we're putting on. We can take off that coat. Okay. So let's talk about the fallout. What happens in the fallout when we step onto the drama triangle? Now that we've identified this, I want to get serious to see what's the cost of staying stuck in the victim triangle when it comes to not having these tough conversations. Let me create more context. When you're off the drama triangle, you have the tough conversations. You may not enjoy it at first. I get it. You likely feel relieved after you've had it. But the fact is, you have them because you see that it is the best thing for you. When you are avoiding tough conversations, you are inherently, again, on the victim triangle. That means something other than your highest and best self is at the helm. Your personal core values are no longer guiding your actions. Your reactionary self is leading you forward. And you've identified what those reactionary selves are called by your persona names. Fantastic. Mine's Cool Hand Luke, right? I let my wants fall to the wayside. I don't voice my opinion. I act cowardly and timid, and I think of myself as dumb or less than. That's me. You have your own reactionary self, okay? So the question goes back to when you're on the drama triangle and you're in your go-to role, what is it costing you? Is it money? How much? How often? Is it a relationship? With who? To what degree? Is it your self-esteem? My peace, my happiness? There you go. What do you lack? Which I see some of you writing on there. And what is the crappy thing in its place? Because you're on the drama triangle. Is courage lost and cowardice and depression more familiar? Is your team without guidance and flailing? If you're comfortable, throw it out in the chat. Regretful, yes. Energy is lost, yes. Stress and anger, yep. I'll tell you about my own stuff, right? So when I'm get onto the victim triangle, my go-to is the victim role. Like I said, I become shy, become like my label is Cool Hand Luke, and I pull back. I become cowardly or reserved. Cassie, for those that know her, is a very strong and a very powerful woman. In order to create a balance in our relationship, I have to rise up to be just as strong and confident. Otherwise, Cassie's like a varsity player playing with a frosh soft player. So Cassie on the varsity is bored and turned off by playing with a novice, with the frosh soft player. And when I say turned off, I mean it mentally, emotionally, and physically. No flirting, little partnering, because she thinks she has to take care of everything, right? Because I'm acting helpless or hopeless. And when that's going on, no sex here, right? Because who wants to have sex with a needy, whiny, helpless dude? Not going to happen. So what does it cost you? Mine's sex. What's yours? Connection, focus, guilt at not stepping up. Yep, overwhelm. Great. So you got your missed opportunities. Thank you for writing those. You are all courageous. Business relationships, fun, happiness, overwhelm. Good. These are good. You let commitment slip. Yes. Very good. You got to see the cost. You've got to know what's happening. When you know what's happening, this is what Karpman said. Just the awareness helps you helps you see, and it turns the house lights on. Okay. Now, let's talk about, nice, Marcella. Very good. Ayumi, nice. Now, we're going to talk about the antidote. What is the antidote and the only way off the drama triangle? Responsibility. That is the only way off. So what I want you to do is look at the persona, or sorry, the person or the situation that we looked at the beginning that's challenging to you, right? The relationship or the conversation. This could have been maybe with your direct report. This could have been with your spouse, whoever that was. You got that in your mind? Yep. Good. Now, the general question is, how is your reactionary persona disempowering them? When you've stepped onto the triangle, because you're finding the conversation challenging, you're avoiding it, that means there's somehow a disempowering dynamic between you and the other. How are you disempowering yourself or the other? Good, Jamie. Great. I'm going to go through a couple of examples here. If you find yourself, raise your hand if you find yourself in the victim position. That's your primary. Anybody like me? Thank you. Very good. How can you, the antidote here, because you have found yourself in a helpless, hopeless, I can't do anything for myself role, the antidote here is that you have to take ownership in moving something forward. You have to take responsibility. You've disempowered yourself. So now what you're going to do, the antidote, empower yourself. You have to initiate the conversation. Maybe it's an email with dates and times to talk. Maybe it's sending an agenda of what to cover. Maybe it's simply walking down the hall to their office. What I want you to think about is, what is the single next step to progress the thing forward? You don't know what, you don't necessarily at this point need to come up with what it is you talk about. You have to move the ball first. If you are waiting, you are just antagonizing yourself and keeping your disempowered state of being in the victim position. Okay? Who are our wonderful villains and persecutors? Who are our scars? Oh, no, scared to put your hand up. No, 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 God, don't want to show that I'm the villain, that I'm the maleficence of the world. So, the question to you, how can you shift your emotion to not poking the other, but instead challenging? It still comes out from you. You still have a sense of control or a sense of power within you, but you're shifting what the power is for. The villain blames. The person that is empowering others and is themselves empowered challenges others to rise up. The only way to do that is you have to find believability in yourself and in them. Do you hear that, villains of the world? You can't make a move until you find believability in them. I believe this part they can do. When you can find that spot within yourself, you can have the conversation that empowers them. Okay? Third one, if you are the rescuer, the hero, the overachiever, yeah, there you are. Your go-to is, how do you coach them to figure it out? Think, what's the phrase? Teach a man to fish, right? Instead of giving them the fish. What's the one thing that you can teach and coach about the topic, not do the thing for them? You're still acting towards them, right? The rescuer acts towards them, but it takes their stuff. I'm now acting toward them, but I'm giving them something so that they can then be empowered and move themselves up. You don't pull back. Don't do the opposite. Continue to move forward towards them, but you empower them with information, knowledge, with skills so that they can do it themselves. So let me repeat myself. If you're the victim, you have to take the bold first move. If you find yourself in the victim position, you have to take the bold first move. What is that step? And I want you to think about that specific person or that specific conversation. I want you to email me. Email lindona@productivelearning.com. If you find yourself in the victim position, and I saw a handful of you are like me, raise your hand. What is the first step that you move the ball forward? I want you to email me what that step is. lindona@productivelearning.com. Okay? Position 2, the persecutor, right? The villain. I want you to write me an email to tell me how you will challenge them to be the best of themselves. Remember, you're not demeaning them. You're challenging them because you believe in them. You believe they have more. So first you have to find the belief, and then you have to say, how are you going to challenge them? Okay, write me an email, lindona@productivelearning.com. If you're the hero, who is the rescuers again? Remind me who the rescuer is, Jamie. Yeah, Jennifer, great. You have to email me and tell me, what are you going to do to teach, coach, or educate somebody else, whoever that person is? What are you going to teach them? What are you going to coach them? What are you going to educate them to progress them forward? Which will move you forward, but your goal is to progress them forward. Everybody hear what their positions are and hear where they're how to make the first move? Nods. Yes.
Lyndon, before you move on, Marcella asked a great question in the chat about what if you're persecuting yourself? What if you're
Ooh.
the villain towards yourself?
Ooh. You're maleficenting yourself? Wow. Wow. Fantastic. Well, then great. Continue with this idea. How do you challenge yourself to be the best of you? It doesn't change. It's just instead of the trajectory out there, which is typically blameful out there, you're challenging yourself. You still have to make that first, hey, I believe this of you. I know this of you. And you have to find the belief within yourself about yourself. It's not about John, Jack, or Jill out there and why I'm blaming them for not doing it and now have to believe in them to empower them up. You're saying, instead of looking out there, I'm just looking back at myself in the mirror saying, what do I believe about myself that I know to be true? And I'm going to challenge that person to step up. You're also teetering back and forth. Everyone teeters back and forth in some direction to the victim. You're also being a victim to the world, right? There's a secondary portion of that in that statement. And so then you can go back to what does the victim do? The victim's first way off, A, awareness, knowing that you're being aware, and B, is you have to take the first step. You've got to take action. So what is the action? And I personally, I am a physical person. I'm an athlete. I like to move. When I think of being in the victim position, when Cool Hand Luke comes out, it's not a figurative, theoretical take action. It is a physical, material world take action. It's a go and make the phone call. It's a go and shoot the email. It's a go in the conversation and have a conversation with Cassie saying, "Hey, I've been a wuss and this is lame and I need to show it better in our relationship." I have to go and do action. Otherwise, it's all in your head. And the victim within me can then just manipulate it and I can continue to spiral down. So I would challenge anybody that has that victim mentality within them or victim role that they can take on, go act out into the world. Make sense? Good. Good question. Good question. Jamie, did I miss any other questions through there that that I didn't grab?
Ellen also had a great question. If you can speak a little bit more to the dynamic of being in two positions and whether that's dependent on who you're engaged with and or how do you use or pick the antidote if you're playing both and going back and forth?
Yes. So everybody see the drama triangle up here right now? Yep, sharing that. So again, we've got three positions: the rescuer or hero, the persecutor slash the villain, and the victim. All of these, why we call it the drama triangle and why the secondary name, the other name, is also known as the victim triangle, is because all of these positions are actually rushing or moving themselves around to find themselves eventually in the victim role. So you will have multiple corners of the triangle that you are on. The villain or persecutor is victim to the world. They're saying, they did this to me. Mufasa did this to me. He put me further down the line of being king of the lions. That's a victim statement, right? Because the world is against me in some way. The rescuer hero says, they can't do it. They can't get their numbers in by the end of the month. I'll go do it. They're bad. They're incapable. I have to do it myself. It's all on me. That is a victim mentality. All of them have, if you can hear that, all of them have some feeling of victimhood in. So you will have two roles or positions that you flutter back and forth between, likely. Similar to what I talked to Marcella's question about is, if you heard my antidotes of the positions, the what to do when you're in one of those positions, you do a combination of both of them. So the victim has to make a move, take an action. The persecutor villain, they have to challenge the outside, but in order to do that and not come across as blameful, they have to find believability in that other person, or like Marcella's circumstance, herself. The hero has to teach, educate, coach somebody to progress them forward. So if you are in two positions, you just do both of those two things. All of which is taking responsibility for yourself. You want to progress the ball forward, then you find out how you progress the ball forward. You move it forward if you're the victim. You educate other people if you're the hero. You challenge others if you're the blameful person. It's still you taking responsibility for what you want going forward. Great questions. Great questions. Love it. Love it. If you've got other questions and I'm missing them, throw them back into the chat or shoot me an email, lindona@productivelearning.com. I do want you to shoot me an email to tell me what is it that you are going to either do, challenge, or educate, kind of coach somebody through, whichever position or multiple positions. Send me an email to what those are, okay? All right, let me see where I got to here. So the drama triangle is our very human reaction to being in relationship to other people where we are either taking too much or too little responsibility. When it's too much responsibility, we become the hero or rescuer. When it's too little, we become either the villain or the victim, right? The goal, easier said than done, is to take only 100% responsibility for yourself. No more, no less. The shift from too much to little to only 100% is a very personalized journey, though. Why? Because it's dependent on your history, your reasons for stepping onto one side of the triangle, right? Just like Marlin's backstory in Finding Nemo. He lost everything. And because of that, he began to get scared and overprotective. Hence why he became the hero. He has a reason why. We've got to know those reasons why. For those of you that watched the last masterclass, Who Are You Voting For? You got some tools for how to regulate your emotional state. Those tools, though, get applied in a very specific way depending on your position, depending on your backstory, depending on your ongoing stimulus and how you are viewing the world. That's why I suggest you don't do the work on your own and alone because you're trying to analyze yourself while you're in that role on the drama triangle. And when you're on or in that role on the drama triangle, you see the world tainted from that perspective. So your answers only come from that viewpoint, that perspective. When you take 100% responsibility, no more, no less, you're off the drama triangle and you have those challenging conversations. You just do it because you know you're actually being guided by your higher values and your mission and what your goals are. So you have them. Answer it from there. Or have somebody help guide you that can see the best in you, that says, hey, the best in you would believe this and would act this way. That's what productive learning's trainings and or coaching can do for you. So email me what your next step is, lindona@productivelearning.com. Let's set up a free coaching session to help you move those conversations by taking responsibility for where you are and how you got on the drama triangle and the steps to get off of it. Okay? Got it? Cool. Now, you've identified yourself on the drama triangle and you have simple next steps for how to get off of it. Simple in theory. I get it. Challenging to do without some guidance. I am here for that. Thank you all very much for digging in and coming to today's masterclass. Happy holidays. I'm looking forward to your emails and to talking with you all very soon. Bye-bye.